Hi there, it's Sherry, and this video is going to be 5 ways that I found really effective for overcoming perfectionism. Now, what I mean by perfectionism is not a desire to master something, because of course, whenever we learn something new, we want to be really good at it and we want to have a high degree of proficiency. What I mean by perfectionism is the need to have something absolutely perfect before following through with it. And I personally see this as more of a problem than it ever was before. I think mainly because there's just so much information out there. So a lot of people just never get started on things because there's just so much to learn. So if you are one of those people, then hopefully this can be helpful. So the first way I found really effective to overcome perfectionism is to follow the breadcrumbs of people that are doing what you want to do. A lot of times, people who do something really well, like they want to hide their tracks because they're kind of embarrassed of when they first got started. But there are still ways to kind of see someone's earlier works. For instance, when I first started writing, I loved writing, but I wanted to be much better at it. And I had read novels that just blew me away. I'm like, this is amazing. There's no way I could ever do this. And what really helped me is that when I started reading the earlier works of people I really admired, I realized that they weren't anywhere near as good as their later works. So for me, I was fortunate to have discovered this because it kept me motivated to write, because I realized that had they not produced those earlier works and kind of went through the process of learning, those later works never would have existed. So for me, that was really a firsthand recognition of the danger of not doing something because it's not perfect right away. So it really kept me encouraged to just keep writing and to keep improving my own writing. So I would suggest if you're sort of in that boat where you really want to do something well, but you're kind of feeling held back because of perfectionism, I would suggest try to find people's earlier works, especially if it's something that you also want to do. And I think that can really be encouraging to sort of overcome that obstacle of perfectionism. So another way that I found has been helpful in overcoming perfectionism is the realization that perfectionism actually prevents you from being anywhere close to perfect. Because if you're so dead set on having everything perfect that you're not actually putting your hands in the clay and learning what you want to learn or doing what you want to do, you're actually doing yourself a disservice in the sense that you're never allowing yourself to get better at something. So it's just sort of an ironic principle where it's just if you want everything to be perfect, then in a sense, you're never going to get anywhere near perfection. So another way I've really found helpful to overcome perfectionism is the realization that you can always revise something. Especially in this age, you can literally take down a video and re-edit it, or you can with the computer, you can go over and over the same paragraph a million times. So there's no reason to not just start doing something, because you can always make it better. For instance, songwriting, there's no reason to not write a crappy song, because you can always improve on the song, or you can always write another one. So just knowing this, although it seems obvious, just really understanding that you can always revise something can really help to overcome perfectionism. So another reason I think that people get so hung up on being perfect is because they're afraid of being judged. So just having the understanding that when you do something, the people that are going to judge you negatively, and I don't mean constructive criticism, but are just straight up going to be nasty, they are always people that are not doing what you're doing well by any means. In most cases, they're not really doing or trying anything because they're afraid, and they're really just projecting that. So having that realization can really help transcend that. Just knowing that if you're afraid of being judged by not being perfect, just know that the people who are judging you don't really matter. They're not usually the people that you want to have in your sphere. They're not people who you can really like emulate. Like, they're going to be people that just like are afraid to do anything themselves. So the last way that I found is really helpful to overcome perfection is to sort of just like push everything aside and sort of just do an experiment where you're like, okay, I don't really feel like I should get started on something, but like I'm gonna do it anyway. Like, just like that initial, just like, you know what, I'm just going to like go ahead and try something even though I don't know everything about it, and I'm just going to see what happens. You know, just doing it in that spirit to begin with can help overcome perfectionism, because usually what you think is going to happen isn't. Like, it's not going to be as bad as you thought it was usually. Or if it is, you realize like, okay, it's bad, but it's not the end of the world. And sometimes I find that can just bypass it altogether. You know, just like that sheer determination. Like, I don't have everything perfect. I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it anyway. And when you do that after a while, it will start retraining your brain to be like, this isn't as scary as I thought it was. I hope these tips were helpful. Let me know, like, if, you know, you've ever struggled with perfectionism, and like if there's any other ways that you found. But these have been invaluable for me, and I am so glad that I was able to overcome perfectionism, because it's just allowed me to just like do so many things that I wouldn't have been able to do had I kept that mindset of like everything has to be perfect at first. And again, I don't mean that there is not value in mastery. Like, of course there is, but with perfectionism, you're never going to come close to that. Like, I write and I play music, so I understand like the value of going over a paragraph a million times, like, you know, just practicing a scale a million times. But if you just spent, like in the instance of writing, like your whole time just making one paragraph perfect and never even like went on to the next chapter, then that kind of defeats the purpose. Like, it's finding that balance between being like, yes, I want something to be done and to be done well, but also like knowing that at some point you have to just like get started. So anyway, I hope this was helpful.